The table was set with gold-trimmed plates, candles flickering softly beside bowls of cranberry sauce and mashed potatoes. My son had insisted I sit at the head. Like old times, he said. For a moment, I believed him. I folded my napkin across my lap, my hands still trembling from the arthritis. Across the table, his wife gave me that smile, the one that never reached her eyes. Dinner was already tense, the kind where everyone speaks too politely and drinks too quickly. I reached for the gravy. Just as he stood up, the room went silent. He lifted the turkey platter with both hands. Then, without a word of warning, he flung it across the table, toward me. It crashed into my chest. Warm meat and stuffing exploding down my sweater. Gasps. The sound of a fork hitting the floor. My heart pounding like I'd been shot. Then his voice, loud and raw. Back to the nursing home. Mom, this isn't your place anymore. I didn't speak. I picked up the platter, wiped the table clean. Someone handed me a napkin. I didn't use it. No one defended me, not even my granddaughter, who used to braid my hair and beg for bedtime stories. I walked out quietly, turkey grease soaking into my socks. But as I passed the foyer mirror, I caught a glimpse of myself and didn't see defeat. Only clarity. I didn't cry that night. Back in my tiny apartment, I sat at the kitchen table still wearing the sweater stained with gravy and shame. The sleeves stiff with dried sauce. I hadn't bothered changing. Somehow, it felt wrong to wash it off too soon. Outside, fireworks cracked the cold night sky, someone else's Thanksgiving ending in laughter. Mine had ended with turkey on the floor and my son screaming across the table like I was a stranger who'd overstayed her welcome. I brewed a cup of tea, the same way I had for 40 years, boil, pour, steep 3 minutes, 2 sugars, but it didn't taste right. It tasted like absence. The silence pressed heavy against the walls, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator. I stared at the spot on the wall where I used to hang a photo of my son when he graduated from college. Smiling, proud, before she came into his life and turned that smile into something sharper. There was a time when Thanksgiving meant family and pie crust made from scratch. When he'd call every hour asking what to bring, if I needed help, if I was feeling strong enough to host. Now, he couldn't even look me in the eye after throwing a bird at me. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the group family chat. No messages, not even a, "Hope you got home safe." Just a photo from earlier that afternoon, my daughter-in-law's phone. A perfectly filtered shot of the dinner table, cropped right before the chaos. I was still tagged in it. #grateful #family time. I turned off the screen. The apartment felt too small, too quiet, the kind of quiet that wasn't peaceful, just empty. And yet, there was something almost liberating in it. No one here to raise their voice. No judgment in every glance. No silent disapproval when I buttered my bread too loud, or asked someone to pass the salt. I had been excluded, violently, publicly. But maybe, just maybe, I had also been freed. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Old habits die hard, I suppose. For 40 years, I was always the first one up, packing lunches, folding laundry, feeding mouths that never said thank you. Now, I boiled water for one. As the kettle screamed, my mind wandered to the signs I should have seen. This wasn't the first time I'd been silenced. Just the loudest. Like last Christmas, when they said the guest list was tight, and I should rest instead. Or the time I brought over my famous sweet potato casserole, and my daughter-in-law placed it in the fridge and served hers instead. She always smiled when she did those things. That smile that meant, "I'm being polite, but you're not wanted here." Back then, I told myself I was imagining things. That I was old, sensitive, paranoid, even. Now I know better. It wasn't about the turkey. It wasn't even about Thanksgiving. It was about erasing me, quietly, efficiently, and finally. They had started long before yesterday. Cutting my voice out of family decisions. Changing the locks without telling me. Moving my things from one room to another like I was clutter. I remember one time, 6 months ago, I asked why I couldn't find my wedding china anymore. My son said, "Oh, Romy boxed up a few things to declutter. You know, for your safety." My safety. As if crystal bowls were more dangerous than being invisible in your own family. I went to the closet that morning and opened the box labeled Christmas. Inside, behind the tinsel, was a stack of papers I'd almost forgotten existed. The deed to the old house. My name was still there, right beneath my late husband's. And beneath that, our handwritten note in the margin. No sale without both signatures. A clause my husband insisted on. Even when I said it was unnecessary. I'd called it overkill. Now, I called it protection. I sat down on the edge of my bed, the box still open beside me, and let the weight of that paper settle in my lap. They wanted me gone, but the house wasn't legally theirs to give or take. Not yet. I didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. Just awake. Like after years of sleepwalking through forced smiles and biting my tongue. I was finally seeing clearly. And I knew exactly who I'd call first. I dialed the number slowly, like my fingers needed to be sure. Martin Reynolds. The voice answered, steady as ever, my husband's old attorney. I hadn't spoken to him since the funeral. Martin, it's Evelyn. A pause, then a softness. Evelyn, it's been a while. How are you? I almost laughed. Well, I've had better dinners. He didn't press. He never did. I told him what I found. The deed, the clause, the signature, and the turkey. He was silent for a moment before speaking. You want to act on it? I looked around my tiny apartment, the beige walls, the second-hand couch, the microwave that sounded like a dying train. Yes, I said, I think it's time I reminded them whose name is still on the house. He didn't need more. That afternoon, I met him at his office. Same leather chairs, same ticking clock on the wall that used to make my husband restless. Martin slid a folder across the table. Quietly, professionally. Inside, copies of everything they tried to hide from me. Bank transfers I never saw. Maintenance bills paid from my account. Even a note. My daughter-in-law had filed to refinance the property under her name. She tried this without your consent. Martin said, it won't stand. I wasn't angry. I was focused. She wanted to erase me from the house, from my son's life, from the family history, but my signature was still required. And I wasn't going anywhere. On the way home, I passed a bakery I used to take my son to when he was small. He loved the lemon bars. I bought one, not for him, for me. Back in my apartment, I sat by the window, watching people walk dogs, carry groceries, live quietly. I bit into the lemon bar, powdered sugar falling to my lap. They thought they'd pushed me out. But I still held the pen. I didn't tell them I was coming. I just showed up. 3 days after the dinner, I stood at the edge of the driveway, coat buttoned tight against the November wind. Their cars were there, lights on inside, the smell of cinnamon candles wafting through the open window. Home. I rang the bell. It wasn't my son who answered. It was her. Romy. Her mascara was perfect, even for a Saturday morning, but her smile faltered when she saw me. She glanced behind her, then stepped out onto the porch, pulling the door halfway closed behind her. Evelyn, she said, feigning surprise, you should have called. I don't need permission to stand on my own doorstep, I replied. That wiped the smile clean off her face. I handed her the envelope. Thick, heavy, legal. What is this? She asked, already knowing. The deed, I said, and a cease and desist. You don't get to refinance a home you don't own. Her jaw clenched. You're making this difficult. No, I said, you made it difficult when you decided I was disposable. She tried to laugh it off. We were just trying to help. This house is too big for you. You'd be happier somewhere with people your age. I had people, until you made sure they stopped seeing me. Behind her, I saw movement, my son, peering through the hallway. He didn't come out, just watched. I turned and walked away. Not because I was defeated. Because the next move was already in motion. That night, Martin filed the paperwork, formal injunction, financial audit, property dispute notice. I wasn't just coming back. I was reclaiming everything they thought I was too weak to protect. And I wasn't doing it quietly. The letter arrived 2 days later. Stamped, official, cold. It informed them of the audit, that all property transfers, account withdrawals, and household expenses involving my name were now under legal review. I didn't have to be there to hear the panic. But I imagined it clearly, her voice rising. His going quiet. Both scrambling for explanations they thought they'd never have to give. I didn't want revenge. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted them to feel, even for a moment, what I had felt sitting at that Thanksgiving table. Invisible, humiliated, reduced. I spent the afternoon in my small living room, sipping tea and folding laundry. There was peace in the routine, a kind of rhythm I hadn't felt in years. Then the knock. I opened the door slowly. My son stood there, hands in his coat pockets, eyes tired. For a moment, he looked like the boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard, grinning with pride like they were roses. "Can we talk?" he asked. I let him in, silently. No hug. He sat on the couch, shoulders hunched. "Romy's upset," he began. "I imagined so," I replied. He looked down. "She says this is all unnecessary. That you're just trying to make things harder." I didn't answer. Because he wasn't here for me. He was here for damage control. "Mom," he tried again, "we didn't mean to hurt you." "That's the problem," I said softly. "You didn't think about me at all." He had no answer. I stood, walked to the kitchen, poured another cup of tea. Didn't offer him any. "This house was supposed to be ours." He mumbled. "No," I corrected. "It was mine. Then it was your father's and mine. And it would have been yours, if you'd remembered I was a person. Not a piece of furniture." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just looked at him. And for once, he didn't look away. He stayed seated for a while, fingers laced, eyes fixed on a corner of the rug, the same rug he once spilled juice on when he was 5. I'd scrubbed it for an hour with club soda and tears. Funny what we remember. When he finally stood, he didn't apologize. He just said, "I'll talk to Romy." Like that was enough. I nodded, not in agreement, but to let him go. He left without asking for a hug. The door clicked shut behind him. I waited until I heard his car pull away before walking over to the desk. I opened the top drawer, pulled out the folder Martin gave me, copies of every legal misstep, every forged signature attempt, every bank record they thought I wouldn't notice. Not because I needed to use them, but because I needed to remember, I wasn't imagining it. It really happened. They really tried to cut me out. Quietly, strategically, as if kindness was currency I had already spent. That night, I lit a candle, not for prayer, not for peace, just for light. I stood by the window and looked out at the empty street. Leaves blew across the pavement like pieces of an old life scattered by the wind. I thought of the woman I used to be. The one who bit her tongue at every insult. Who brought store-bought pies just to be told they were too sweet. Who was told to stay out of the way at her own grandson's birthday party. I thought of the silence I used to wear like a coat. Not anymore. They wanted a clean erasure. They got resistance. And not the loud kind, not the kind with shouting or slammed doors. The kind that arrives in envelopes and courtrooms. The kind that doesn't go away when the party ends. 3 weeks later, I received the final notice. The refinance was blocked. The deed was untouched. The house, the one with the red shutters, the creaky front step, and 30 years of memories was safe. Legally, emotionally, symbolically, mine. But I didn't move back in. I didn't want to. Because somewhere between being dismissed and reclaiming my name, I discovered something far more valuable than property: peace. I bought a new teapot. I joined a local book club at the library down the street. I started walking every morning, past the same houses I once rushed by on the way to school drop-offs or grocery runs. Now I walk slowly, purposefully. I breathe more deeply now. Sometimes I see families laughing on porches. And it stings for a second. But it fades. Because I've learned, family isn't who shares your last name. It's who remembers your worth without needing to be reminded. My son called once since that day. He said Romy wanted to clear the air. Maybe invite me over for Christmas. I told him I'd already made plans. And I had. I planned to make cinnamon rolls for one. To watch my favorite old movies. To set my own table and sit at the head, not because someone told me to. But because I chose to. That's the thing no one tells you about getting older. You stop waiting to be chosen. You start choosing yourself. And that changes everything. One morning in December, I opened an old tin box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were things no lawyer could file. Hand-drawn cards from my son. A broken locket with a picture of my late husband. A napkin from our first dinner in that house, still folded. I sat on the floor, legs tucked under me like I used to when I was young, and went through them slowly. Piece by piece. Memory by memory. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't moved, but because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel erased. That house, that family, they had taken pieces of me over the years. Quietly, gently, like erosion. But this box held proof that I existed fully. Loved deeply. Fought silently. I placed everything back carefully. Then added one more item. The letter from Martin, confirming the property rights had been upheld. I didn't keep it for legal reasons. I kept it because it was the first time in years I felt like someone had fought for me, with me, not against me. Later that week, my neighbor Linda knocked. She was holding 2 mugs. Hot cocoa, she said, too much for one. We sat on the porch of my small rental, wrapped in blankets, steam curling into the cold evening air. She asked if I missed them. I paused. I miss who they used to be, I said, but not who they became. She nodded like she understood. And I think she did. Because people like us, women who gave too much for too long, always recognize each other in the quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't lonely. Just earned. Christmas came. There was no card in the mail. No invitation. No message from my son. But I didn't wait for one. I decorated my small living room with a strand of white lights. Hung a single stocking above the radiator. Set the table with 1 plate, 1 cup, 1 cloth napkin folded just right. I made my husband's stuffing recipe. Halved it, of course. And I played the old records we used to dance to, soft. Scratchy. Familiar. No chaos. No whispers. No tight smiles around the table. Just peace. That night, I walked to the park near my apartment. It was quiet, dusted with snow. Families bundled in coats passed by. Some singing, some silent. I watched them without envy. I didn't need their joy to validate mine. Because this year, no one told me to move over, or stay out of the photo, or let the younger generation take over. This year, I had space. I had breath. I had a life that wasn't on someone else's terms. At the edge of the park was a bench with a brass plaque. In memory of those who never stopped showing up. I sat there a while. And I thought, that's who I want to be. Not remembered for what I gave away, but for what I reclaimed, quietly, fully, unapologetically. A week into the new year, I returned to the park. Same bench, same plaque. But this time, someone was already sitting there. She looked around my age, perhaps a little younger. A knit hat pulled over graying hair. Eyes distant, hands clenched in her lap. I paused, unsure whether to interrupt, but she saw me and slid over, offering space. We sat in silence at first, the good kind. After a while, she spoke, voice low, careful. My daughter told me not to come this Christmas. She said it'd be too stressful having me around. I didn't ask why. I didn't have to. She sighed. I bought gifts for the grandkids anyway. Left them on the porch. I nodded. That was all. No lecture. No comfort. Just acknowledgement. Sometimes that's more than enough. She looked at the plaque. Read it aloud. In memory of those who never stopped showing up. I used to think that meant being everywhere for everyone. She said, now I wonder if it means showing up for yourself. I smiled. Exactly. Before she left, she asked my name. Evelyn. She told me hers was Margaret. As she walked away, a little taller than when she sat down, I thought of all the women like us, who gave, who bent, who disappeared quietly into kitchens and spare rooms. And I thought, maybe we're not invisible. Maybe we're just finally done shrinking. It's been 3 months. The house still stands, painted, furnished, filled with people I once called family. But I haven't stepped foot inside again. Not because I lost, but because I no longer need to. There's power in walking away. I drive past sometimes, not to spy, not to ache, just to remember that I survived it. That I was thrown out of a dinner meant to celebrate gratitude. And instead found clarity. They wanted to humiliate me. But all they did was strip away illusion. They thought the house was the prize. It wasn't. The real inheritance was never made of bricks or deeds. It was my voice. My spine. My name on paper. Yes, but more importantly, my name in my own mouth. I no longer wait for holidays to feel seen. I no longer measure my worth by how many chairs they save for me at the table. Because I have my own table now. Smaller. Quieter. But it's mine. Sometimes, I still think of that Thanksgiving night. The slam of the platter. The grease. The silence. And then I smile. Because that was the moment everything changed. They threw the turkey. But I walked away with the feast.